Thank you so much for joining the webinar this morning. Today we're going to be asking the question, how can furniture change the office? And I'm personally really excited to be having this conversation and discussion with our panel about how the commercial furniture industry is adapting and evolving, how people are changing the way they research and design to suit these new ways of working, and let's face it, for an unknown future as well. We're personally finding that clients are looking for more flexibility in their office space, so looking to furniture items that are freestanding rather than building partitions and fixed joinery pieces. Also looking at flexibility regarding the way people work when they do come to the office as well. Not everyone is going to have the same emotions or feelings about coming back to the office, and we all thrive in different environments as well. So it gives us a really interesting challenge to design one space that does actually work for everybody. Another key thing at the moment is sustainability, which we can't ignore at all. It's becoming higher and higher on businesses' agendas, and interestingly on employees as well. People are wanting to work with and for companies who share their values around these things. And the office space really tells your story. People are going to notice what materials are used, how the space feels, and whether individual well-being is taken into consideration. And these elements are all giving the furniture industry a really interesting and exciting task to develop products that are going to support these needs and also bring real and practical solutions to the table. Today, we have 4 of our favourite furniture manufacturers on the call, who have all had to diversify and adapt over the past 2 years. So today we have Bertie Van Wyck from Herman Miller. We've got Dan Gilmore from Table Blaze Chairs, Cornelia Coppustate from Connection, and Nathan Hurley from Orange Box. The running order for today, we're going to start off, everyone's going to give a bit of information around an exciting new product that they are launching or have launched recently. We're then going to get really stuck into a discussion around all of these topics and what people are noticing, kind of trends that we're finding at the moment as well. There's going to be a lot of interesting information, and I think this is going to be really fun. So please keep your questions coming in throughout. We are going to be picking up and answering as many as we can in the second half. So I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say. Nathan, I'm going to hand over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Hannah. I'm just going to quickly share my screen with everybody. Hopefully you can see that. I'm really looking forward to this morning's conversation. I think it goes without saying that the workplace of tomorrow has a really rich bandwidth of work settings for people to move around freely, choosing what work setting is appropriate for the task at hand. But today, just for a couple of moments, I'm going to be speaking about just one of those typologies, and that's a product that we call On the QT. And it focuses on focus, individual focus. It tries to give you, within your working day, just a moment of solitude, a moment for you to just break away from sort of the open plan, the sort of no man's land of open plan working. And we call that product On the QT. And you may sort of think that this is just a phone booth, but actually it starts to go beyond that. We have 2 sizes of On the QT, and we think that's really important because you don't quite realize what use case you're going to have when a call comes in. So a phone call at any moment could be planned or unplanned. And so for a taller phone booth, an unplanned call, of course, is really appropriate because you can use that in quite a transactionary way. You can go in for 5 minutes, you know, the doctor may be calling, the head teacher, something's happened to Sarah or Sam, and that's great. You can just transact with that for just 5-10 minutes. And then there's a shorter option within that portfolio of on the QT, because we want people to sort of relax into that product, because you've got a Teams call, a Zoom call for an hour or so. And so maybe that product is bookable, and you can sort of sit and dwell within that for a few hours at a time. Now, of course, with these types of products, we don't want people to be in them all day. That's not going to do anything positive to your health or well-being. But these sort of moments of sanctuary are really, really important. And so businesses to really think about how they can and there's a couple of great things that we've thought about from a design point of view in regards to mobility. I mean, Hannah, you spoke about flexibility on the QT for both sizes. A pallet truck can simply be wedged under the product in an engineered way, and that can be moved instantaneously, so between floors, between spaces. And the reason why on the QT has a kink is for acoustic properties. So when you're speaking into the kink, immediately sound is pushed down to your feet, and so not disrupting or frequencies that would potentially disrupt others within the building. So that would be the reason for that. So that's on the QT. So a lot of our clients, we're advising them to populate their spaces with these quiet moments for planned and unplanned calls. Okay.
Great, thanks, Nathan. We've had a question already around, Mark has asked, do these have power?
Yes, of course. They're sort of freestanding units, but they're just plug and play. So you just plug them into the nearest floor box, and away you go.
Perfect, thank you. Dan, do you want to jump in with your new product?
Thanks, Hannah and Nathan. That's good. So I'll just quickly share my screen here. Brilliant. So yeah, thank you. So just really coming in here from quite a different angle. Table Place Chairs is a relatively new brand or rebrand, and we've kind of come from the hospitality sector. So we've spent years designing products for restaurants, hotels, and the hospitality sector. And as we've been developing them, creating furniture, it's had an appeal in many other sectors as the lines have become blurred. We kind of see hospitality in the workspace. And I was just looking back at some notes, and about 2017, I wrote a blog on hospitality in the workspace. But I think actually that has been accelerated through the recent happenings. Everybody is looking for comfort away from home when they're coming into the office space. Just working recently with the workspace, we've collaborated with a few of the corporates, and they are looking for zoning and defining spaces. And so this is something that we came up with, the Circle of Life. It's it's not necessarily an acoustic space, but it's a zoning and defining, and it's called the Circle of Life because of its sustainability factor. We're using curtains to soften the space, and these are made from recycled plastic bottles. And the framework is a metal framework, so the whole thing is sustainable. We're looking at the circular economy there. So what we have here is a number of modules that can create a circle, a square, a wave, and a stadium shape. And as we've developed it a bit further, we've got the seating in there now. We've got shelving and space for media. So I think that's really basically the product. But our strapline is making places for everyone, because we see the power of place. Everybody needs a place. And I think this is kind of the idea around that, is that if somebody needs to have an impromptu meeting or a quieter time or a bit more of a focused time, they can enter one of these spaces. It's defined as a space away from the main office, and they can focus. I hope that makes sense.
Perfect, thank you. I really like how adaptable this is. I think every time I've come into your showroom since you've had this installed, it's looked completely different with maybe thinner curtains or thicker curtains for a bit more privacy. So yeah, super adaptable.
That's cool.
Cornelia, do you want to jump in with yours?
I'll share my screen. Maybe you can see this okay.
Yeah, we can see that.
Yeah, just a quick introduction and connection for those who may not be aware of us. We're a key manufacturing company. We actually partner globally. We mainly focusing in agile pieces that we don't supply or manufacture storage and shelving. So we kind of respond to the agile needs of the work environment. And we all know why we're here today, pandemic or what happened in the past, but we're not here to dwell on that. We're here to look at the future of the offices and how the pandemic actually has affected the offices, employees and employers, and what's now required of them. So very fortunately, 36% of employees want to get back into the office, and this is based on a WK Space proprietary research, which is fantastic and very knowledgeable. And not only employees, but also employers want to get back into the office. And surprisingly or unsurprisingly, it's an even higher percentage. And reasons being, it's because teams cannot do what we can do in the office anymore. In the beginning, it was fantastic, but people want to socialize, people want to collaborate, they want to have one-to-one meetings in person rather than having sitting on your screen, you know, all day, every day. And we have problems like working longer hours as well, working from home rather than going to the office. So needs have definitely changed since the pandemic. And on this note, because of the change, office is changing too, and what is required of the office now has changed as well. So because we need to create those collaborative areas, one-to-one areas, we're no longer just going to have desking. So we have to create those boundaries, those neighborhoods in the office environment. And I'd like to introduce to you our newly launched product Harp, which does exactly that. It creates soft boundaries in any environment, and it's very versatile. It's just kind of aesthetically as well, very pleasing to the eye. It occupies vertical plane rather than horizontal, which means it's perfect for also branding, for collaboration, and it has many, many accessories we can actually use, such as planters, whiteboard walls, shelving, media screens as well. And it gives designers and architects another use rather than just going for shelving and planting to use in the working environment. And as I mentioned already, it just provides a bit more of that softer boundary than having just to, you know, build partition walls and then having to knock those down at the end of the lease time. Just a few more images to show you the product.
Yes, Cornelia. Yeah, I think this type of product is what would previously have been a joinery piece, right? Which would cost 5-10 times more than a furniture item. So yeah, really exciting stuff.
Yeah, exactly that.
Before Bertie, I come on to you, we've had a couple of questions on the QT pods regarding air quality and acoustics as well. Nathan, you're right to just jump back in.
Yeah, no problem. In regards to airflow, air is brought in from your air-conditioned environment outside the QT. So whatever great quality air you have outside of the product, you will have inside. The fans will bring that in for you. Due to me not being the engineer or a salesperson, I couldn't tell you exactly what the air change is within the environment, but it's incredibly comfortable to be sat in. One thing you do need to be careful of with these type of products is sort of a submarine pressured effect, and that can be alleviated with the correct amount of airflow coming into the product, being brought in and being brought out. So that's really important to think about. With acoustics as well, the amount of glass, the amount of fabric and upholstery that you have within the product itself does help, but really it's the acoustic cassettes that sort of make up the structure of the of the product that really help. They're perforated, they capture low and high frequencies, and it's an absolute sweet science when it comes to these type of really tight environments. The most important thing is comfort. So I would urge anybody who's going to buy any of this, any product like this, to go and try it for an hour, get in there and use it. I would urge people to do that.
Perfect, thank you. And we've had a couple more while you've been talking around how long people are supposed to work in these, sprinkler integration regarding building control. So
yeah. Just on the sprinkler integration, the legal requirement, I believe, for a sprinkler integration is over 1 square meter. So it on the QT doesn't need any sprinkler integration legally, but it can be brought in for certain international markets. I know in some markets like Japan, that rule doesn't apply. Was there something about power, not seeing power, the cables in the imagery? I think that
it was how long are you supposed to work in them?
Oh yeah, sorry, Hannah. Thank you for reminding me. There is no rule book. You could work in them for all day. We certainly wouldn't advise that, just because you need to. The best sitting position is the next one, and what we try to encourage is quite an active movement around the space. And so for as long as you need, if you need to be in there for 5 minutes, or you need to be in there for 5 hours, that is up to you. They're comfortable enough to use all day. They're bringing in fresh air all the time. But I would say for your mental and physical health, it's totally up to you, but certainly not all day.
Yeah, and it comes down to individual companies as well, and how they implement these changes, and how people are trained to use these new pieces of furniture and spaces too. So yeah.
Nathan, I would like to ask, is there any rules around fire alarms, being able to hear fire alarms when you're in a booth?
Yeah, good question, Bertie. At the moment, we're able to just get away with it just by having no integration with the fire alarm whatsoever. So fire alarms do operate in 2 different ways. Obviously, one audio, the other one being fire alarms having some sort of visual sort of siren attached to them. So there's that element, you still being able to see that. And however good your phone booth is, whether that be Framery or the countless other wonderful products in the market, it's never going to block out a
Perfect
fire alarm.
Perfect. Great.
Cool. Thank you. Bertie, do you want to jump in with your new product?
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me again. When we start looking at the future and we're looking at the kind of post-pandemic, we thought to ourselves, you're unsure about what the world is going to look like. What is the office going to look like? So we thought to ourselves, what if we can create an environment? What if we can create a space that we can change our immediate environment within 1 minute? Change the furniture with power, desk with power, in 1 hour, and change the whole design of the office within 1 day. And that's when we came up with OE1. So I'm just going to open up a slide to show you what I mean by this. So I've got quite a few slides. I'm just going to try and run through this, and I don't know, I need to optimize for video. There we go. Can I just check? Can you guys see the screen? It says OE1 Workspace Collection.
Yep.
Yeah, we can see that.
Fantastic. So we created a collection of items, because it's not just one item that we think is going to change how we work. So I'm going to run through this with you. So Sam Hecht and Kim Cullen, these designers created something that's both enjoyable, that's flexible, but it's a product line that covers loads of different choices of settings, and it's very easy to adapt and fit in with what you currently have. So here it gives you a really good example of integrating instantly. And the idea around this is you can have some items that you add into what you already have, or you can create a complete floor plate. So everything you see on the screen in front of you, that is OE1. And let's just hope this works. Hope you guys can hear the sound. Can I just get a confirmation? Can you hear the sound?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So through this video, you'll get a good idea of just purely how adaptable this system is. So whether it's day one, whether it's in an hour, whether it's 2 hours, you can completely change the environment that you're in. So again, on the same floor space, the same square meterage, everything is adaptable, everything is movable. So if a team changes, their function changes, they grow, they change in the tasks that they have to deliver, or you have a project team that's got something new to work on, the space will adapt to their needs and what that team needs to work on, whether they need to change it in the short term or in a little bit longer. So agility for teams, the idea here is, we want to help teams create a flexible, fluid environment. It's also great for organizations. So if you're not sure what your scaling process is, it allows you to scale up or scale down quite easily and with a lot of flexibility. And the other key thing that we talk about is optimizing real estate. There's so much wasted space around in many offices and many environments, even corridors, that with this product and this product range, it allows you to really get much more out of the spaces that you already have, whether that's a corridor, whether that's a reception, whether it's different kind of environments that you have within your own space. So one of the key things that we have is an agile wall, exactly like one of the other speakers said. Dividing space is going to be very important, especially if you bring larger teams back into an office, creating the environment around them. Mobile easels, exactly the same, being able to move these things around. Tables and benching, again, great, beautiful items, whether it's for the home or whether it's actually for the office. And then great little items like the Nook, where it gives you time to get personal work done, be productive anywhere within the space, and you can drop them in the environments that you need. Communal tables, and another key thing to remember here is a modesty screen, as you can see right in the middle of that table over there, is really important. If someone is using a stool and they've got a dress on, if there's no modesty panel, guess what? They just won't use that environment or that space. So having that additional privacy is really quite important to ensure that everyone has an included experience and being able to use the environments that you create. The same with project tables, simple table on wheels, but it fits right at the end of workstations, so you can increase the environment and size that a project team might need, or you can just take the table off and put it in a meeting room or somewhere else that you might need. The same with the huddle table, move around towards a screen where the screen is movable. And the great thing here is remembering that a screen like that, if it's movable, it means that's not the main focus point of an environment, but the whiteboard can be, for instance. And then I just want to quickly focus on this. These are the micro packs, take up a lot of, a very small amount of floor space. That item right in the middle, 3 people can stand, get to the exact right distance, height that they need to be. Or you can have multiple workstations, completely height adjustable, again, taking up a smaller amount of a footprint. And here's just some images of what some of these environments can look like. Straight up against the wall there, a height adjustable table for someone to drop in or stand or sit and do work. More adaptable environments, and these same environment can be changed into multiple different ways. These things, the weight is quite incredible. You can just simply move the screens around and change the whole environment to whatever you need it to be.
Awesome, thanks, Bertie.
Cool.
Just looking at the questions popping in again, Paul has mentioned health and safety and DSE for people using laptops, which is super important. I don't know if anybody wants to jump in on that one.
I mean, on that point, there's for the home. We need to do much better evaluation of people actually working from home. We know that 15% of people working from home don't even have a desk. They don't have a work surface. So if you have a hybrid strategy, that's the first point to look at. But in the office too, if you're going to have people working from laptops, simple things like a laptop stand and a separate keyboard is a great solution. Even better if people do head down focus work, have screens that you can just simply plug into. If it's an area for individual focus work, get a monitor on, get a screen so that when people arrive with their laptops, they can just plug it in and easily engage in a much more ergonomic environment. I hope that
I think that's it. Yeah, definitely. I think the easier these places are for people to use, the more likely they are to use them, right? And we want to encourage people to move around and use these different environments throughout the day. So, cool. Looking at the long term and short term, we obviously don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future. So it's quite tricky to design something now that is going to stand the test of time in 5, 10, 20 years. Nathan, what are you thinking about that?
Yeah, that's right. Because everybody on the call, their role is to try and understand what the future landscape starts to look like, and it's become increasingly more difficult. Everything that's been shown this morning, and there were some fabulous examples of how we design a more healthier future for us all. You know, I don't know, but I would hazard a guess that those types of products take 3 to 5 years with it, you know, to go from sketchpad to showroom, and so it can be quite difficult for the manufacturers to sort of make some sort of calls about what those things start to look like. However, you know, nudges along the way help us with all of that. There's no doubting that we're in the most creative moment in our industry, and that any of us will ever see probably in our careers. We have this wonderful, we're at the sort of apex of a lot of workplaces throughout the globe are just simply not really fit for purpose. You know, this new interaction, this sort of digestibility of I'm going to use this piece of real estate for 2-3 days a week, you know, whereas it's been designed solely to be used 5 days a week. So we're at this really great, you know, clients are coming to us of all sizes looking for revolution, not just evolution, you know, not just looking to tweak 5% of their real estate, to completely look at the whole package, which is wonderful. So that's so in the short term, probably seeing lots more sort of dem spaces, trial, beta testing, you know, people carving out a little bit of their real estate to trial and test new things that might be working for them. In the longer term, you know, I'm not going to undermine the point that I made earlier. That's really hard to try and make those calls. I think probably looking at new business models, looking at how we can start to offer services rather than just simply, you know, selling product. How can we look at all different ways in which, I'm not going to say the word lease, but how can we look at a system where we look to take back some of that, some of those products? And it's because I guess if we're putting it out into the world, all of us on the call, you know, we should have a level of responsibility about making that. So, you know, Dan was talking about the wonderful product he showed about that circularity. You know, the responsibility should be on us to sort of take that back and to reuse and recycle all of that good stuff.
Well, I'm just looking at the questions again. With all of the flexible furniture and flexible solutions that we're talking about, there's been a few questions about power and how things are moved around when they're plugged in. I mean, generally, it's as simple as unplugging from a floor box and plugging in somewhere else. If you've got tidy cable management, then it should be a pretty easy solution. And I know that I noticed in a few images of yours, Bertie, some quite smart cable management kind of integrated with leg details and stuff that just make it look slick, because you don't want to move things around and have cables left over and trailing and in the wrong place. So it's all about the integration with the build as well, making sure that you future-proof that floor plan and have enough power dotted throughout for kind of relocations and reconfigurations as well. Just thinking about the function of the office, and it seems like that's changing. I mean, there's a big push on the office is a place to collaborate, and we need people to come back to work because no one's actually seen another soul for a year or however long it was. And a big push on offices being a collaboration hub. But I think once we actually are in the office and using it more, we need focus spaces as well. We need spaces to get away. We need spaces for our well-being, because it can be overwhelming for people, and there is still a lot of anxiety around what's happening at the moment. But I know you've done some interesting research on this as well.
I mean, I think I'm probably just backing up here what Nathan's saying, but you know, we know if you're going to design an office, if your environment, if what you're expecting, what you're creating in the future is a space for collaboration only, it's going to be a disaster. I'll just straight up tell you that. From the Leesman Index, they've got a scoring system, a 4-block scoring system around 800,000 reviews of how spaces have been designed and created. And you get all the other offices, like ones that are great for individual work, ones that are great for individual and collaborative work. But the worst performing office, which is known as a obstructor office, is an office that's designed for purely collaborative work. And it's because in these spaces, there's no space to hide. There's no space to go and do individual focused work without interruption. So when we're creating spaces of the future, exactly like Nathan says, you still need those environments where you can just easily break away and have your privacy without having to take some stairs down to go find a meeting room. It has to be within close proximity. So when we're designing spaces of the future, it isn't just collaborative work. You don't collaborate for 9 hours in a day. Even if you go into the office, you need space to where you can do head down focus work. And if you don't get that in the office, guess what? I'm just gonna stay home. And then you have that whole struggle again of how you're getting people back in.
Mm.
That's a nice thought. That sort of the office has never really been competing with home before, and the home is quite like, it's a very formidable opponent. At 8 a.m. every morning, well, whatever time you wake up, sometimes 8, sometimes 7, whatever. You've got a choice to make, and the office was, in recent years, was sort of competing with a coffee shop or co-working space, and that was really nice. That was a nice dynamic, but it was never particularly competing on a everyday level with home. And so Bertie's right. You've got to go beyond just the standards. And I'm not going to sort of dig out or be negative in any way to people sort of setting your workplace standards, whether that be HR or other workplace committees in the office. But we have been sort of criminal to giving people just the right amount of oxygen to survive in a workplace. What are the bare minimum environments that we can create? And you just can't get away with that anymore. You have to sort of, when you're competing with home, you have to go above and beyond, and just provide people with the just richest experience they possibly can. And it's easy saying that. That's really expensive. That's a huge investment to try and flip your environment into something like that and have that experience. But potentially we need to do it to attract and retain the best talent we can. But it's hard.
Mm.
That's a good point, actually. I was thinking about that, and I kind of have been thinking about the wheels on everything. I don't actually like that myself. I'm going to just throw that one in there, Bertie. Just because I think it can be confusing to an office if you have wheels on everything. And I just feel there's a lot more of a need for zoning and defining spaces. So if you're competing with the home, you have your kitchen where you cook and maybe eat. You have your lounge where you sit and relax. you kind of need that in the office. And I think that's kind of the that's where I see the hospitality in the workspace working so much. It's kind of opening it up so you've got your spaces where you can sit, relax, and I think everybody needs to feel that sense of community, so they can go to that space and sit together and talk. There was a Harvard review on the other day about return to office burnout. Suddenly everybody's coming from home where they've been sitting on their own. They're coming into the space, suddenly surrounded by people, and it can create a huge amount of fatigue quite quickly. So it's about how we develop our spaces to get them back into the space, into the workspace.
Yeah, I think that's that familiarity that people need to make them feel comfortable at the office as well. I know what you mean about people are used to having things in certain spaces. But it all depends on who's actually going to be in the office as well. I think your kitchen will generally stay in the same place, your toilets will stay in the same place, your meeting rooms are in the same place generally. But yeah, it's just being able to adapt those spaces for whoever is using it at that time. And also touching on inclusivity and diversity, which is really important too, I think. Cornelia, a few challenges are obviously popping up regarding this. Do you want to touch on what you've been seeing and finding from your research?
I mean, I'm going to agree with Dan again. I think it's very important to reflect on actually what employees require in the space now, and going back, what's required when you're going back into the office. As we've been away for such a long time and our needs have changed, and reflecting back onto my presentation as well. I mean, you know, you have to introduce change into the office, but you have to have meaningful and kind of insightful consultation with your employees and stakeholders before you do introduce that change. Because, you know, as employees, we make up 80% of the capital, you know, of a firm. And it's important how we reflect that in the office environment as well. And if you are going to introduce change that's going to be unhealthy and inappropriate, like working manners, it's going to be reflected in what you receive as an employer from your employees. So, you know, pandemic has not only changed how we think about work, but it kind of prioritized what and how we want to do work. You know, people now say that, you know, if I can't do the hours or the days in the week that I want to do, if my employer can't accommodate this anymore, then I potentially be looking to go elsewhere. And that's become a huge kind of life and work balance. People liked working from home for a particular period of time, maybe perhaps until the clocks went backwards and, you know, it was difficult to start to working from gardens anymore. And, you know, you want to go out and see people again. But at the end of the day, we have to listen to what employees need, what they require. We just need to have a good advice, listen to them and implement everything effectively into the offices.
Yeah, I think it's tricky, isn't it? Because there was a bit of a trend for resi-mercial. I hate that term, but that's what people have been calling it, where you mix residential and the home with the office. And because you're coming to the office doesn't mean you want a home away from home. You're coming to the office for a reason, and it does need to be different, doesn't it?
Absolutely. But at the same time, although you are coming to work, you know, you're coming in there to, you know, get your head down and get through bits of work that you need to. But at the same time, you almost don't want to take away that comfort that you maybe had at home, and having those, again, softer boundaries and places where they kind of separation places where one location is used for collaborative work, one location is used purely where you sit down at a desk with a computer, get through bits of work you need to, and that is it. But for some people, it might be days that they come in purely just to have the meetings, purely just to collaborate. So you have to, like you said, have that balance really in between the two.
Yeah, I think privacy is going to be a big one as well. Everyone's been used to having Teams calls at home, and that's completely different for everyone as well. Some people have had kids running around and animals, and others have been kind of squashed in a bed in a shared flat. It's been really different for everyone. But I think coming out of those environments and sitting in the middle of an office when everyone is on these Teams calls, is quite overwhelming, and we need to make sure that we're designing enough different spaces for people to do the different tasks at the right time and giving them the choice for that. One of the questions a while ago mentioned the struggle to find tech that actually works for these situations. I don't know if anyone's got any comments on that. I know I haven't found the perfect solution.
Well, hybrid is hard. Hybrid meetings are so tricky, and if anybody has found the perfect solution for them and their business, then I'm all ears. I guess it's about participating rather than just witnessing. I think a lot of people anecdotally have felt like when they're not in the room, and when, you know, 5 people out, 5 people in, and it can be really difficult to sort of read the nuances, you know, the silences, the 5 minutes before, the 5 minutes after. That's really, really difficult. Some of our clients have been trying to recreate the same amount of real estate, the sort of physical real estate that you would have in the meeting. So they would be doing things like flipping TV screens, portrait, and sort of throwing them on casters and sort of rolling you up virtually to the meeting room. And yeah, that's obviously had some sort of hits and misses. It's really difficult. You know, there are some very smart AV people out there that I'm sure office principals would be connected with and would know that are figuring this stuff out. It's hard. You know, everybody's finding it difficult.
Mm.
There's some basics around these things too. I mean, for any organization, you need to have good technology. If you don't, you're basically stopping your employees being productive. They should never wonder, oh, is this working? Is this taking longer to upload? The quality of what people deliver is dependent on the technology that you give them. It has to be fantastic. But there's simple other things, like if you're going to have a hybrid meeting, which most of us will do when some of us are in the office, the camera in the room needs to be exactly the same height as the users within the space. Otherwise, you don't feel like you're looking at them. If half the team is in the room and the other half is online, make sure that you put your cameras on your laptops also on, so that it's not a voice yelling out of nowhere. Simple principles like that can have a really big impact on how people work within an environment. But you do need good technology. That's an absolute given. And when we look at how we're creating spaces for, you know, the next 3 to 5 years, for us, from all of the things that you've mentioned, it summarizes down to 3 key elements, and it doesn't have to cost the arm and the leg neither. So the first thing, exactly as Dan said, you know, we need collaborative, great community socialization spaces. So in the environments that we create, we know people want to go back and socialize. And the countries that open up first, from the data that we had, people spend more time in that than almost anywhere else, even to be just within earshot of others. So great community socialization spaces. The other one is you need great team collaboration spaces, which is different than what we think. It's for the great on-site meeting rather than the great off-site meeting, because larger teams will come in at the same time and will want to work together, but also break away on their own. That's why you need that agility within the environment. But then the third space is you also need great individual focus space you won't be interrupted in, space where you can do head down focus work. And for some offices, it's as simple as saying that side of the space, we're going to call that a library space, which means in that side of the office, if you take the stairs, you go to that side, you're not on your phone, you do not have a Zoom or a video call out loud in front of everyone else, so that you know when you start your day, or depending on what you have to deliver, if I go into that space, I'm going to get some productive work done. If you have an office and an environment where you wake up in the morning and you have to evaluate, am I going to be able to get work done without being interrupted the whole time? If you don't have a good answer for that, people stay home. So that's the real key thing. Great community socialization spaces, wonderful team collaborative spaces, and great individual focus spaces is what we're creating for our clients for the next 3 to 5 years.
Chris has commented saying, haven't we been working hybrid for years for a lot of businesses? And it's true, but we've never been hit as an industry like this before. Office principals have been big supporters of workplace consultancy and really getting into the data of how individual companies work. But this is the first time that we've seen the whole industry as a whole being affected in this way. And it's really exciting, actually.
And just the notion, this might maybe seem a silly comment, but in a way, we were quite fortunate as an economy that this pandemic and lockdown happened in 2020. Just imagine if it happened in 1996. We wouldn't have all of these tools. And Chris is right. Of course, over the last, well, whenever we've had these tools, we've been figuring out, but it being forced upon us has meant that there's been some great innovation in a really short period of time. And to think about, I guess, one thing that I'd be conscious of, certainly for my employer, I'm keen to sort of impress this on them, is that we've all been exposed to really novel moments while working, out of the traditional office. Novelty like, just being able to, grind your own coffee beans, or to make a sandwich that you never made, or to see friends at 4:30 rather than 7. These are sort of, these make up a really rich tapestry of your working day, and they make you feel good, and they sort of add value. And that sort of stuff should be embraced. Sort of, if people feel more comfortable wearing casual clothes, great. Let's bring that in. Let's not make all of the good stuff that you like to do happen at home. I think good businesses need to sort of embrace all of those novel moments that have been happening and bring them in. If you like doing your laundry, great. Get your business to subscribe to some sort of laundry service in work. That sort of stuff. That will really help people come back with confidence.
Mm. It's reassuring people that they're being seen as people and not just employees. I think that's going to be what makes people feel comfortable and want to stay with businesses, I think.
That's interesting.
So go ahead, Dan.
Just really interesting, very quickly, there was a pharmaceutical company that we've been talking to. They have a head of hospitality for their staff. So I think that's how it's going to change, which that's like you're walking into a hotel, and that's, they'll take your bags off you, put them in the cupboard, and that is that kind of interesting development that I think bigger corporates will look at as time goes on. Sorry, Bertie.
No, I'll add to that one too. Like, that's the new community manager that we're copying over from the co-working world and into corporates. Absolutely. Like, if you want to have a great experience, have someone that looks after the hospitality, have someone that's a community manager whose main role is your personal well-being. And how fantastic would it be to actually have that, which is not the same as HR and it's not the same as facilities. It's a completely different role. So that's fantastic.
And it's more than just a free bowl of fruit too.
Yes. Cool. Well, I think that's come to a really nice end, actually. We'll be able to share all of the presentations we've seen today with the viewers, I'm assuming. So we'll get all that sent out. And yeah, thank you to everyone for coming and joining, and thanks to all our speakers. It's been a good one.
Brilliant.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Have
very
a good
much.
day.
Everyone.
See you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Take care.